Good morning. Happy Wednesday and welcome to episode 7 of Cage Report. I'm Mike Knockenhauer. That's Colton Alder. Lot to talk about. Well, actually, not a lot to talk about, but fall sports wrapping up and looking forward to winter sports. But let's break it down. Football came to a disappointing close this last Friday at Elkhorn South. Any takeaways, first impressions?
I mean, that game was a lot closer than a lot of people expected heading in. The Junior Jays had a chance to tie that game and send it to overtime within the last minute or so. That final drive just ended up stalling out about 30 yards short. But I think overall the team played really well, especially on the defensive side. I mean, the score was 14-7, but I mean, you look at it, Elkhorn South went down and scored on their opening drive, and then there was a play in the second quarter that was initially ruled a penalty, got called back, ended up being ruled a touchdown, and outside of that, they didn't allow any points the rest of the game. They shut down that Elkhorn South offense for most of it. They couldn't run the ball well for a team that is focused on running the football. They had a bunch of underclassmen like Cooper Fix, Aaron Shaw playing a lot of snaps on the defensive line. Ian Aslan was back over the middle. He made a lot of plays. Geo Boyd made a lot of plays. The defense overall played extremely well. And I think the run game, for the most part, played well too. It's just like the issues with the passing game rearing their head yet again. And that ended up leading to the running game not getting as much opportunities, and the offense just couldn't move the ball very well.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about defense. That was a Elkhorn South team that averaged over 40 points a game coming into Friday, and this defense was able to hold them to just 2 touchdowns. And obviously the second one was pretty controversial. We're not going to get too much into that because we don't need to criticize any officiating of any kind because that's not who we are. But other than that, I was proud of how the team played. They came out with some fire. They got punched in the mouth early, but I think they responded well. They didn't back down. They were down 14-0 at half, but they still came out in the second half and competed. There's a lot of punts on both sides, but that shows that this defense was able to make stops. I think that's the biggest takeaway.
Yeah, and this team is very well coached on the defensive side. They improved a lot from last year after.
I think you're much more disciplined, I think is the way I describe it.
Yeah, and they do have a fair amount of guys graduating, but they also have a fair amount of guys who are coming back next year, especially in, like, the secondary. Alex Costello really the only piece that they're losing back there, and that's huge after that unit really only had 2 guys coming back from last year. So definitely a lot more experience there. The defensive line and the linebacking core does lose a fair amount of guys with Geo Boyd and Ian Aslan both being gone, along with Daniel Kenny as well. But
Trashinsky as well.
Yeah, but the defensive line outside of Sean Skridlak mostly comes back as well.
Mm-hmm. Ahanti, Brock, who else? No, DePuter's gone.
Yeah, DePuter's gone as well.
But yeah, you were talking about the secondary. Really, Costello's the main piece they're losing. Vinny Saul's coming back. Preston Woodward, Silas Bush, Nico Cosmic, Jordan Udofia. He seemed to be limited this year.
Yeah.
Especially with I think he was injured to start the year. So it's a young group. It's a young group of guys on the defensive side of the ball. Offensive side of the ball is going to be a little more of a question mark, though. Obviously, Tony Caniglia, the third-year starter, graduating. Jacob Ruby, who had over 800 yards rushing, graduating. Jackson Wergler, Will Keeney, Wyatt Lasher, a chunk of the receiving core, all seniors.
Both their main tight ends and Sledge and Jarrett both graduating. Nathan Wilch and Callahan Kowal also graduating on the offensive line.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting to see what happens next year. Obviously, we won't be here for that. Really, it's only Sheldon Galladay for the receiving core, and Angela Walker will most likely be RB1. But yeah, I mean, quarterback is a big question mark as well. I think probably Jack Lammers is going to be headlining that quarterback room, whoever ends up being. And special teams is going to be a little interesting too, because Sledge is a darn good kicker. He's a punter, he's a darn good punter.
And Drew Gotch, their kicker, also a senior, I believe.
Yes.
So they're going to have to find a way to replace both of those positions. And, I mean, they've both been really good at their roles this year, so that's a pretty big loss as well.
I think a question you and I could actually bounce ideas off of and talk about a bit. Does this team go back to platooning?
I personally think that they should. Whether or not that's actually practical might be a different question.
They're currently platooning.
Oh, I
get what you're saying, but yeah, obviously platooning is. No, you're good, but yeah, you're good, but no, yeah, we're just on the same page now. Platooning is one side of the ball.
Yeah, so I actually misunderstood the question. I think they should have guys play both sides of the ball.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought you were trying to say. Yeah. That's kind of like currently they're platooning. Do they continue platooning, or do they go back to what it was our freshman year? I believe it was our freshman year, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Was our
freshman and sophomore? Wait,
sophomore? No, yeah, sophomore year. Sophomore year. Yeah, so it was just the junior and senior year for us last year and this year. Personally, obviously, we're not coaches. We don't know this team as well as they do. But I've always, in terms of high school ball, I've always liked to see guys playing both sides of the ball. That's just my opinion. I'm interested to see what your insight is and what you've thought, because over the last few years, there's just been a couple of guys that I'm just kind of like, I feel like this guy would be like, there's some corner, he's like, I feel like this guy could be a really good piece, a really good addition to this receiving core, or guy on the offensive line who blocks well. I was like, he could probably get after the quarterback pretty well in pass rush. But it's just stuff like that I think that this team is missing, and I'm interested to hear your thoughts, because we've got plenty of guys. You see the sidelines; they're packed. Sidelines are packed. There's so many guys and even JV and all the lower levels that want an opportunity, and I feel like it's hard to say, because platooning, I feel like you're in need of more players, but at the same time, not platooning gives way for more subs, I feel like, because more guys are getting tired. I don't know. I'm rambling, but I'm interested to hear your thoughts.
I personally think they should have guys playing both sides of the ball, especially at a position like receiver or tight end, where otherwise they don't really have anybody returning at those positions next year. Sheldon Galladay is pretty much their only receiver that got a lot of playing time this year that's coming back, and they don't really have any tight ends that got a lot of playing time coming back either. So in that situation, maybe you'd put like a guy in the secondary like Vinny Saul or a Silas Bush or
I would love
like
to
that.
see Vinny as a receiver.
Yeah.
That would be fun to watch.
Yeah, and for tight end, if you have a linebacker that you like, maybe just try and put him over there, I guess. But
I mean, Daniel Kenny was a fullback turned linebacker, and I mean, he dominated all year long. Jarrett went from the defensive side of the ball to tight end, and he had a great job in pass pro. But obviously with this, and run blocking as well, but obviously with this offense being run heavy, as a tight end, your main assignment's gonna most likely be run blocking.
Yeah, there's obviously going to be more of a focus on the run, no matter if they decide to platoon or not. But in the event of platooning, you don't really have anybody that you feel like you can trust at the receiver or tight end position right now. And if it takes some guys on the defensive side also playing on the offensive side of the ball for them to get going offensively in the pass game, that might be a move that you have to make. I mean, obviously, all these questions are mostly going to go unanswered for about another 9 months at least. But it would not surprise me if they go back to guys playing both sides of the ball next year.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that's just a part of high school ball, and maybe I'm old. It's hard to say old school because we're still in high school, but I just feel like this team was able to generate more success whenever they had guys playing both sides of the ball. Like I said, we're not coaches. We don't know this team. We don't know this group as well as they do. So it's difficult for us to say, but that's just my feelings on the situation. And yeah, let's take a look at basketball. Currently we don't have let's go off script. We don't have any notes for basketball. We don't have any notes for any winter sports because this was supposed to be just a fall sports and football wrap up. This group intrigues me a lot.
Yeah, I think most of the main guys from last year are coming back. Torrin Carter-Brown, Trinell Parker, Josh Carney.
He's not. He's going full baseball.
Oh.
Yeah.
Did not know that. But
he's very good at both.
Yeah.
Luxury problem. Oh no, I have to play one varsity sport instead of the other one.
Yeah.
Oh no.
It also another intriguing player for me is Max Jungers. He was a freshman last year. He played in the FIBA U16 tournament
for Luxembourg.
And he played really well.
Very well, yep.
Yeah, so I think he's going to get a lot more playing time. Obviously, his brother was a great basketball player when he was here. He's now at Iona.
Mm-hmm.
But Jungers, being a sophomore, he could be like the second or third guy this year and then step into that lead role as Trinell Parker graduates next year. So that's an intriguing possibility.
Yeah, the reins kind of got handed down. It kind of feels like it's gonna come full circle. It went from Jungers, and then Clausen, and now Parker, and it'll probably eventually be Max Jungers again. Number 2 in the preseason rankings, behind Millard North. This overall, from what I'm garnering, this is a much weaker state in terms of just pure skill than we've seen in past years. Our freshman year was unbelievable. But this year, because of the lower, and that doesn't mean the basketball is going to be bad. It just means that there's not as much talent throughout the entire state. This year feels way more wide open.
Yeah. And Bellevue West kind of ran the state the past 2 years.
One loss over 2 years, I think.
Yeah, and they lost a lot of talent from 2 years ago to last year, and they lost even more talent heading into this year. So it feels like the top team has kind of abdicated the throne a little bit, and everyone else has a much better shot this year. Millard North still retains a ton of talent, but I think that we have a very good shot at contending for a state title this year, and it's ultimately going to come up to the players and the coaches, but heading into the preseason, I think optimism is very high for this team.
Absolutely. I mean, with a guy like Ludke, Coach Ludke, he has a coaching style that he's developed for long enough that if you give him any group of guys, they're going to compete in some way.
Yeah, and they've got a very talented group of guys this year with the Jungers, Parker, Carter Brown, as we mentioned.
And then there's so many JV guys coming up that are mostly still juniors and sophomores.
Yeah, and there's a fair amount of questions to be asked on which ones are going to step into those main varsity roles, fill a lot of those roles that were left by a guy like a Dylan Clausen or a Caleb Josu or a Marquise Tolliver. But I think overall they've got the talent to do it. It's just a question on if things are going to work out with players filling certain roles and positions for this team.
Absolutely. I mean, it'll be interesting to see. December
5th is first game.
First game is against Papillion La Vista. I think the Jamboree's at the end of November.
And first home
game is December 10th. Yeah, I believe they host Norfolk. But that should about do it for us. Anything you want to add before we sign things off for fall?
Yeah, I think we've got a lot of teams in fall sports that have a genuine shot at contending for a state title. Obviously, basketball, as we mentioned, wrestling returns a lot of talent and brings a lot in as well. Swimming, always competitive. Hockey, technically a club sport, but they are the returning state champions as well.
Don't forget bowling.
Yeah, bowling. There's always a lot of questions about bowling heading into the year, so you never really know. But yeah, we can hope that all of those teams have a chance at contending for state titles in their respective sports. So it's exciting heading into the winter sports season.
Absolutely. That'll wrap us up for an exciting fall sports season, and we will get geared up for what will hopefully be a very action-packed winter sports season. I mean, there's a lot. As you mentioned, there's so much going on, so many teams that are expected to compete at a high level, but that will do it for us here this morning. We thank you so much for tuning into Cage Report. I'm Mike Knockenhauer. That's Colton Alder. We hope you have a great rest of your Wednesday. Thank you for watching, and have a wonderful rest of your week.